I 100% think it was a cross, yeah. There's no way he's trying a shot there.
Even if he was actually shooting though and aiming for that far corner, it still wouldn't have been goal of the season for me. Just about every Championship winger could do Philogene's goal. Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the 29 to my 30. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ryan and Justin back in your ears for some Championship goodness. But since the last time we did an episode, Justin, we of course have had both of our birthdays. Forget Valentine's Day and all that nonsense. Ryan and Justin's collective birthdays are the big deal from the past few days. How does it feel to have reached the grand old age of 30? Hence the 29 to my 30 intro.
Yeah, it's different. Life feels different, Ryan. It feels very different. I worry in the mornings now. I wake up and I get up and I don't know whether my back's going to go. I don't know whether my knees are going to go. It's one of those. And I think that the saddest thing about it actually is now we're both in an age bracket where we are squad numbers. We are squad members, squad numbers. We are 30 onwards. It's until we get to 50 or 60 where we become sort of an Italian club's prime player, when they pick like a 62, random 62 or a 59. But no, we are squad players now. We are past our prime and we're squad players.
Yeah, we're academy players. We've got no chance of getting into the first team. That's what...
We're getting released at the end of the season.
Yes, that's what 30 onwards tends to be. Any good presents for your birthday?
Any good presents? I received a gym-specific present. I'm not going to bore the listeners with it. I got a lottery ticket as well, which is actually my first one since I was 16.
You've never bought a lottery ticket?
No.
I don't. Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's weird. I just don't like the odds. They're against me severely.
Well, you've got to be in it to win it, Justin. Do you want to see one of the presents I got for my birthday?
Yeah, I can see it, but the listeners can't, so...
There you go.
There we go.
For the people who aren't watching this on YouTube, it's a book of the funniest Neil Warnock quotes. There's a whole book dedicated to it, and there's... How many pages? 120 pages.
And you've read 115 since Tuesday.
I just can't believe they've managed to make a whole book out of Neil Warnock quotes. I mean, if you're doing a book on Neil Warnock, fair enough, but dedicated purely to his quotes, that's something special. Justin, do you want to play a little game?
Oh, I love games.
Give me a number between 1 and 120 and I'll read out a quote for you.
30.
30. Give me 2 secs. This is Neil Warnock talking about an ex-West Ham forward playing in Sheffield United's relegation. And then Carlos Tevez, football's equivalent of a murderer out on bail, scores the goal that kept West Ham up and put us down.
The equivalent to a murderer being out on bail.
Here's another one for you. There were 2 or 3 managers I just can't stand. I detest them. So far, I've kept to myself what I hate about them, but what they say gets a lot of coverage. I'd love to come back and give my version. I'd like to tell everybody why I dislike these people.
Does it say who he's talking about?
It doesn't, but the book insinuates that it may be Gary Megson and Stan Ternent.
Oh, the Gary Megson thing is quite apt because of the Battle of the Bramall Lane, and there is a few funny Stan Ternent stories actually if I think back as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the other page here, and on the Carlos Tevez theme, he said a few years later, the sooner he leaves the country, the better.
Oh my God.
So he's a man that doesn't hold a grudge, I don't think, is old Warney. But anyway, welcome to the number 1 Championship Podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, not only was it just a nice birthdays over the past couple of days, but we also had a load of Championship football, which we are going to dissect here and now. Of course, some big news regarding Southampton. Their unbeaten run has finally come to an end, so we'll dissect that very shortly. We'll also talk about wins for Leeds. Ipswich as well, they're back on the tractor. The Ipswich are going up tractor, that is back on the road, ladies and gentlemen. And then, of course, we're also going to discuss that Jaden Philogene goal. Was it an own goal? Would it have been goal of the season had it not taken perhaps a slight deflection? All will be revealed later on in the show. But let's kick things off with Southampton, whose unbeaten run has finally come to an end after they lost 3-1 at Bristol City. 25 games that run lasted, 22 in just the league. And this is their first loss since the 23rd of September. An incredible run. And that's got to be acknowledged. But the surprising thing here is Southampton were outclassed by Bristol City. And they were just outdone, which I don't think I saw coming, Justin.
Yeah, it was a real night of positives for Bristol City, and you say you didn't really see it coming. Southampton weren't particularly good against Huddersfield, but if you go back to Bristol City, they just looked quite comfortable out of possession. They set traps and broke at times, and the second half looked really potent. It was a good display, and considering they hadn't won in the last 4 home games, they were a threat from a set pieces, and Sam Bell looked incredibly lively, and he scored his first goal since September. So I don't think this was particularly a fluke. I think Bristol City, their form and their performances under Liam Manning over the past sort of 15 or 20 games has been really, really positive. It's been really good. It's been progressive. And Southampton, I would say they've had a little dip. Just a little dip, only a little getting under a barrier, that sort of dip. It's nothing massive, but it's about reacting for them. So you say you didn't see it coming, but Southampton weren't particularly good against Huddersfield, or at their best, shall we say. And they were punished then, but they got away with it. And then again, they were punished here against Bristol City. If you're not in top gear, you will get punished by better sides, and they were here. Bristol City were really, really good.
Yeah, well, Southampton have been brilliant defensively in this unbeaten run, particularly recently. However, they did have a couple of games, namely that Huddersfield one from the weekend, and also, strangely, the Swansea one as well, where they conceded a fair few chances. So I don't think this has come completely out the blue, but it's still a surprise. It seemed like Bristol City knew to target Ryan Manning at left back. He's very good going forwards, isn't he? But not the best defensively, and it resulted in 2 goals down that side for Bristol City. But overall, Southampton was sloppy, and it's something Adam Armstrong acknowledged after the game. During this 25-game run, there haven't been too many games where they didn't play well but still got a result. By and large, they've been the better team in every outing. Not here, though. So that's why this is also still quite a surprising result. And it felt like the showing really came out of nowhere. Of course, the Huddersfield game was a scare, but they didn't play particularly poorly there. And as we say, the Swansea game from a week or 2 ago, they gave away a fair few chances, but again, weren't poor by any means. Here they were poor. So the question now is, how do they respond? Is this a blip, or is it more than that? Unfortunately for them, they have got West Brom away on Friday, which is one of the toughest fixtures they'll have all season. So it doesn't get any easier for Saints. We'll have more of a chat about that game and whether this is just a blip in for Southampton in the preview show with SBK tomorrow, Justin. But hey, let's give Bristol City their flowers. There haven't been many sides who have even drawn with Southampton since September, let alone beat them. So an unbelievable result on their behalf. And I tell you what, they've had a pretty impressive month, haven't they? They've beaten West Ham in the Cup, taken Forest to a penalty shootout in the Cup as well, got a point away at Coventry, only narrowly lost to Leeds, won away at Middlesbrough, and have now become the first team to beat Southampton since September. And it feels like Liam Manning is quietly making a lot of progress there.
Yeah, I say quietly. You're probably right. He has gone under the radar in terms of, there are other managers who are probably, I wouldn't say vocally doing a better job, but Liam Manning's done a sterling job since he came in, and replacing Nigel Pearson and trying to progress a style of play is a difficult thing. And if you think to how he wants to play, he's typically a possession-based football guy. His philosophy is possession. It can be patient, it can be on the front foot. But you look at this game in isolation, for example, they had 29% possession, so they were comfortable without the ball. I mean, it's always going to be difficult playing against Russell Martin's side anyway, because they are so good in possession, no matter who he's managing, whether it's Swansea, MK Dons, or even Southampton. So you're always going to be the side that's going to be without the ball. But the way they set up here was near perfect. And I think for me, it's just the fact that he's recognised the strengths in the squad and he's tapping into it. It's a high energy, it's young, it's vibrant. It's a squad packed with hungry players. You've got Max Bird arriving in the summer as well. It's a really positive, progressive position that Bristol City are in. And you compare him to other managers that have come in this season. Wayne Rooney's tried to change his style of play overnight. He didn't last very long. Darren Moore didn't last very long. So he's outlasted managers that he got appointed at a similar time with. So Yeah, kudos to Liam Manning. He's made a step up from Oxford incredibly well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Bristol City can do over the next few months.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're a very energetic side, aren't they? They're good fun to watch, and I think if you ask Bristol City fans, the feeling was that a performance like this has been coming. I'm just not sure many people expected it to be against the 25-game unbeaten Southampton. But they are a really good side. They've got a squad full of exciting young players. Tommy Conway, Sam Bell, Jason Knight in particular, I think is a really promising midfielder, and they got him for a bargain in the summer. Then you've got some other players in their peak years, like your Rob Dickies, Joe Williamses, and it's just a good collection of players, and Liam Manning's got them playing. The big issue with them has been consistency, but they seem to be starting to find that. So will it be enough for a serious stab at the playoffs? I would consider them an outside shot right now. Other sides seem better equipped in that regard. But next season, though, I think they could be a bit of a dark horse. Justin, what do you think?
It's an interesting position to be in. I think they're in a really good place right now. If you look at their recruitment, it's been largely quite good and pragmatic and careful over the last two summers. Yeah. I'm not going back to Lee Johnson years. No way. I think Brian Tinian deserves a lot of credit for transforming that. You look at the young players that have come through from different clubs. You know, they go to Guernsey and Jersey quite a lot to pick up players, which I think is a good market to tap into. I guess because Alex Scott's had success coming from there, but that's by the by. They are in a really good place, and if they carry on their trajectory, they are going to be a side who can compete next season. Like you said, this season might be too soon, but they could ask questions at the very least and use this campaign as a positive, as a springboard for a good season next season.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Well, Leeds took full advantage of Southampton's slip-up by thumping Swansea 4-0. Sees them move up to second, but having played a game more than Ipswich and Southampton. And this was vintage Leeds United here, wasn't it? We've seen them put in several top-gear performances this season, and this was another one to add to the collection. Swansea didn't really offer much at all, in truth, but that may be in large down to Leeds just shutting them down and them taking them apart at the other end. I say taking them apart. Swansea were awful defensively here. Two of the goals came from Willy Gnonto, who's finally arrived at the Leeds United party. He infamously had that moment in the summer where he threw his toys out the pram about not getting a move away. Has spent most of the season making sub-appearances, but has had a few starts recently and now scored 4 from 4. And he is arriving at the party, and he's brought the Jaeger, Justin.
He's brought the Jaeger. Yeah, we've seen flashes of him, and it's only taken 6 months of the season for him to really get going. But is there a better time to do it than now? Probably not. Peaking now is perfect. You've only got to take in his footwork and movement for the third goal. It was fantastic, and it just highlights the quality that he's got in abundance and what he can bring to this Leeds side. But you are right. Swansea were terrible, and Farkball was at its very best in this game. I will ask you a quick question, actually. Do you think the notion of Leeds having more top gear performances, or seemingly having more top gear performances than the likes of Leicester, is because they play that exciting, fast counter-attacking football, whereas Leicester are quote unquote boring Leicester?
Maybe. You might be onto something there, Justin. Yeah. You may be right, actually, because I think Leeds are more direct, aren't they? And that can lead to them creating more significant chances than Leicester, for example, where Leicester may lead to just having loads of half chances, if you see what I mean. So, I think you may be onto something there.
I think Leicester are fine wine to sip on a Sunday afternoon, whereas Leeds are your Saturday night. You go out, rock and roll. Let's have a few pints. Let's have a few shots. And it doesn't always work. Obviously, you can't do it every weekend because you get tired. You might get poorly. Whereas Leicester, you can have a wine on a Sunday night. That's all. I think that's the best comparison I can give them.
Yeah. Well, back on Gnonto for a sec, because I think it's definitely worth focusing on his rise. Because I've just really enjoyed his performance here, and I'm really enjoying him back in the Leeds side. One thing I didn't enjoy was the Leeds X account tweeting about his goal. Willie sticks it in. Absolutely revolting on their behalf. But he has really come alive recently, hasn't he? Not only has he spent a lot of the season on the bench, but he's not really taken his chance when he has played, which is why Dan James has been ahead of him in the pecking order. Yeah. And now he's got this chance. He's definitely making the most of it. And the funny thing from the Swansea game is he actually missed an easier chance than the 2 goals he scored. So really, should have had a hat-trick. However, he seems to be enjoying his football again, and we haven't seen that for a while. It's also really bad news for the rest of the league if he is enjoying his football, because Crescencio Somerville one side, Willy Gnonto the other side, that is a pretty frightening attack, isn't it? And that's before you even get onto the likes of Rutter, Pirro, Bamford down the middle. So Leeds are seemingly getting better and better. This winning run has been sublime. So yeah, it's a frightening time to be playing Leeds United, I can tell you that much for sure. A shout for Archie Gray, who provided a delicious assist for Gnonto's first goal as well. That was exceptional, and he's an exceptional talent. And it's now just 1 goal conceded in 7 games for Leeds. That is an unbelievable record. So not only are they a team to watch out for at one end of the pitch, they're also one that's incredibly difficult to break down at the other end of the pitch. But it may not be plain sailing for Leeds United when it comes to the automatic promotion race, because Ipswich Town are back in business. They won 4-0 away at Millwall, just their second league win in 10 games. But a massive result for Kieran McKenna's boys. In truth, didn't really feel like a 4-0 game. Ipswich did seem to get out of second gear, but still ended up absolutely cruising this one, Justin.
Yeah, it was a bit of a weird one. I think it's hard to really decipher or take things away from Ipswich other than it was a good away performance. It was tidy, it was professional. They looked comfortable, but how much of that was because of how poor Millwall were? You know, Ipswich get a couple of goals in the first half and Millwall have next to no answer for them. And then all Ipswich need to do is manage the game, and they did that really, really well. So as I say, I think Ipswich were just efficient with their movement. They took their chances. But you can come away from it and take so many positives. You know, Kiefer Moore getting his third goal for Ipswich, that's going to breed confidence. Ali Al-Hamadi getting his first goal as well, that's going to breed confidence. There are good things to take away from this game. It's a heavy away win without having to exert too much energy, which again, if you're in Kieran McKenna's position where you've had a lot of injuries, your defence has been a little bit shaky. This was a type of game they needed where they almost shut out Millwall, kept him at arm's length and just said, look, we're going to do our business, you do what you can. And they managed it really well. And I think that's probably a bigger positive to take out of it than winning 4-3 as they usually do.
Well, this is a timely reminder of how functionally brilliant this Ipswich side are, because they can quite easily take an opponent apart if they're there for the taking, and Millwall definitely were here. I mean, I've mentioned a lot recently how unlucky Ipswich have been in games, and it would seem their luck has turned based off the first 3 goals. Each of them had their fair bit of luck about them. At the same time, they missed some easier chances as well. But we need to remember they're fourth for a reason. They've been second for most of the season because they are a damn good side, and it's looking like a very complete starting 11 now, with the addition of Kiefer Moore up top, and Ali Al-Hamadi got his first goal as well, coming off the bench, as you mentioned. If they can make this the start of a run of form, then maybe they can prove you wrong, Justin, and still be in with a chance of automatic promotion. The next 8 games are all against sides in the bottom half. Well, 7 of 8, actually, because Bristol City have now moved into the top half. But still, the point remains, there's a very good chance here that this could be the beginning of the return of the Ipswich Town we all know and love. So whether this is the sign of a good run of form starting, we shall wait and see. Just quickly on Millwall, Justin, I was mildly surprised to look at the bottom of the table and see them 21st. It seems a bit of a theme at the moment, doesn't it, where these teams hovering just above the bottom 3 are rotating between each other over who's in danger of going down. A couple of weeks ago, it seemed like Blackburn were in serious danger. Then it was Stoke. Do you genuinely think Millwall could go down? They have got just 1 point from 6 games, so pretty shocking form.
Yeah, I'm really on the fence. I don't think there'll be too many poorer teams than the ones that are in the bottom 3 at the moment. It's going to take a lot for Sheffield Wednesday and QPR to pull themselves out. It's going to be a near miracle, similar to Huddersfield last season, but we can't rule it out. But I think the teams that are down there hovering above the relegation zone, it's been a disastrous season. You know, Millwall spent a fair bit of money for their standards in the summer. So did Stoke. So too did Birmingham, and obviously they've had a traumatic season themselves. So and Swansea. Actually, all the clubs that are currently hovering above the bottom 3 actually had fairly productive summers other than Huddersfield. So yeah, it is a surprise and it is a disaster to see them down there. They should be doing better, but they're not. And if I'm looking at it, I can't rule Millwall out. Like I can't rule Stoke out or Huddersfield or even Birmingham or Swansea at this point.
Yeah, it is a funny one with those teams who are just hovering, aren't they? They don't seem to be getting any better. I thought Millwall had turned a corner because they won 3 games in a row between Christmas and New Year, and I thought that was it now. Joe Edwards was finally getting a tune, but seemingly not. I mean, I said not too long ago I'd have been surprised if Blackburn or Stoke genuinely at a stage where they were in danger of going down, and I feel like Millwall are in a category above them where I'd be even more surprised if they actually got relegated, because that is a bloody decent squad they've got at Millwall. And while it's admittedly not going very well right now, I would be genuinely extremely surprised if they finished below one of the current bottom 3, because that is a pretty poor standard, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and it will be a disaster. But just to give you the current mood of how the Millwall supporters are feeling towards the current squad, I saw a tweet, one of those buy, keep, sell tweets that fans put together when things get really tough, and the majority of players in the Millwall squad had sell next to their name. So that tells you exactly what Millwall fans are currently thinking about the squad and about their form.
Yeah, but that's just typical of a team who have got 1 point from 6 games.
Yeah.
And look, Millwall have had a very disappointing season. You could make a very decent argument that they're the big underachievers of the season. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're seriously going to go down. Maybe it's one to review in a month's time, and if they're still looking over their shoulder a bit, then we may have to revise this opinion. But, actually picture it. How would you feel if you saw Millwall in 22nd place at the end of the season? If you saw that right now, you'd be startled, wouldn't you?
I'd be startled, yeah. I'd go, I'd shoot back in my chair and go, oh! It'd be one of those things. Exactly. But at the same time, a team in 21st, you can't rule them out. I think that's the key. That's the key thing.
Yeah, but can you actually see them finishing below QPR, who have been pretty shocking all season?
I can see anything happening in the Championship.
Yeah,
I can see
Justin,
anything
you've
happening.
had this about Stoke, Blackburn, all these teams who have been hovering above. You said, I can't rule them out. And then suddenly they all look fine again after a couple of weeks. And I feel like Millwall could be very much the same here.
It's better to put a fiver on each team than £25 on one team, isn't it?
I'm not sure that works. Oh dear. Well, we'll talk more about the relegation battle very shortly, but here's the obligatory mention of Leicester City to round off the promotion chat. They won again, beating Sheffield Wednesday 2-0 and increasing their lead at the top of the Championship to 12 points. Jamie Vardy was amongst the goals. He, of course, was once on the books at Sheffield Wednesday, but was released for being too small. Justin, is this the worst example of releasing a young player in the history of football? Because you look at the trajectories of these two clubs since he left, it's looking like one massive clangor on behalf of whoever that was at Sheffield Wednesday back in the day.
I don't know. Vardy's a bit of a freak, isn't he? Not only because of the vodka, Red Bull and Skittles and him being a Premier League winner and that fueling his Premier League winning campaign. It's also the fact that he didn't enter the EFL fully fledged until he was in his mid-20s. And then he just became a goal-scoring freak. You can't bank on someone peaking in their mid-20s. For example, I got dumped when I was 16, and no one could foresee me becoming a sexy, charismatic, successful podcast host.
Still can't. But on that point, I get what you're saying, that he is a bit of a freak. And look, it's taken a good few years after he left Sheffield Wednesday to start proving them that they were wrong. Having said that, surely he can't have. There can't have been too much of a difference from when he was, however old he was, 16, 17, 18, to the point, 10 years later, to him being one of the greatest goal scorers the Premier League has ever seen. Surely there must have been a player there, and just releasing him was just a catastrophic decision.
I don't think it was a catastrophic. As I say, you can't foresee what a player's going to do in 10 years' time.
Just Sheffield Wednesday have released one of the greatest players the Premier League has ever seen.
It's a rough one to take, but as I say, he didn't peak until he was 25. He didn't even peak till he peaked probably a bit later.
Still a catastrophic decision.
I don't think it was. No, because you're using hindsight now to have a,
Yes, of course.
But how many players get released and don't make it? Don't do a Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's an exception to the rule. As I say, no one can become as successful as he has, living off Red Bull and Skittles. Only toddlers can, and he's not a toddler. He's 25. He was 25.
Why are you giving a toddler Red Bull?
I'm a terrible guardian.
I don't see how you're defending this as anything other than a catastrophic decision, because it clearly is. There's just no argument about it. Do you know I once bumped into Jamie Vardy while coming out of the toilet on a train once? It was a very bizarre incident for me.
Was this before he was Jamie Vardy, so to speak?
No. This was, oh God, when we were talking, this was after he won the Premier League.
Oh,
like
God,
when he was still very much a fully fledged Premier League striker. I just came out the toilet once and stood directly in front of me. I was like, oh, that's Jamie Vardy. And then Rebecca was there as well, but this was before the whole...
Were you in first class?
Thing. Sorry?
Were you in first class?
Oh, now I can't remember. Maybe I
don't think you were. I don't think you were.
I wasn't... I obviously...
You were using the first class toilets,
I wouldn't buy a first class ticket because I'm a man of the people. However, I may have used the first class toilet, or the first class toilets aren't much of a difference on a train.
You're a thieving little man. That's what it is.
I used the toilet on a train.
The first class toilet. You don't step foot in the upper echelons of a train. You know the class system.
They're
right?
essentially the same, Justin.
Doesn't matter. It's the class system. You broke it.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met in a strange circumstance?
I guess the guy from House of Dragon, Aegon Targaryen. We both met him actually at a wedding. Because
he went to our school, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, exactly. So I guess maybe him. I can't really think on the spot, but he's the first one that came to my head.
Yeah. Well, have a think about it. You know what? We'll put this out to the listeners. Who's the most famous person you've met in the strangest circumstances? I'm looking for both here, because if you can top Jamie Vardy outside of a train toilet, then I'm very interested, because I still feel like that's one of the strangest moments in my whole life. So anyone who has any shouts, let us know. secondtierpod@gmail.com. We'll give you a mention in the next episode. Anyway, let's take a quick break, Justin. After that, we'll talk about that Jaden Philogene goal, which has been all over your social media over the past few days. Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast. So let's talk about that goal, shall we, Justin? Hull came from a goal down to win 2-1 away at Rotherham, but it wasn't the story of the game. It belonged to one man, Jaden Philogene. I mean, this goal has been all over X, hasn't it, formerly known as Twitter. And, you know, what a goal it was. Or was it? Because unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there may not be the Puskas Award heading to Hull anytime soon, because at first glance it appears like an incredible goal, Justin, but then you see alternative versions, angles of the goal, Justin. It may not be all that it seems.
I wanted to believe. I really did. I banked everything on this, and unfortunately, it was taken away with one angle. So thank you to the Rotherham fan for really for filming that sequence of play from the angle he did, because it was superbly useful to get to the bottom of this. I will admit it was an outrageous bit of skill to attempt a Rabona there. I don't think it was a shot. It was definitely a cross. The skill and control to compose himself, to get in that position to do it was brilliant. An absurd talent from an absurdly talented player, but unfortunately, it's headed in by a Rotherham player.
It is headed in, and unfortunately that takes away the magic of the situation, doesn't it? I don't think we can say for sure whether it would have gone in or not with the header, because it certainly seems to be heading towards that far corner. However, it's only just tucked in beside the post, hasn't it? So it's incredibly difficult to say for sure whether that header was the deciding factor here. But look, the EFL have given Philogene the goal. I mean, to be fair, if you have a shot from 30 yards out and it takes a deflection, then more often than not, that still goes to the person who's had the shot, doesn't it? So I can understand why the EFL have done that. They can't say for sure whether that would have not gone in had it not taken the deflection. So I can see why they've done that.
I know why the EFL have done it. It's because it's blown up over social media. And they are jumping. This is a conspiracy theory. Don't get me wrong, but it's a logical one. They are jumping on the train of the trend, aren't they? They are looking at how well it's been received on social media, and they've gone, let's just give them the goal, and then maybe we can say, look at the good things happening in our divisions, because it was 1,000,000% an own goal. There's no justification at all for Jaden Philogene to be awarded that goal, other than it's trending right now.
Have you played for Southampton ever in your life? Because
the water told me. The water told me. The water told me that there's a conspiracy bubbling here.
Right, Letitia. Here's a question for you, Justin. If it didn't take the deflection, would it have been goal of the season for you? Because judging from what you're saying, you think it was a cross. So I'm guessing not.
A long time listeners of the show, I have a very high, threshold for a goal of the season. So if a shot come cross goes in, I can't give it. Now this is a special circumstance because it's a Rabona. It is outrageous, but he's not attempting to shoot there. He's getting that into the back post, and he's doing it in the only way Jaden Philogene knows how to, and that's a bloody Rabona. So yeah, spectacular bit of skill, but I do sit there and think, I think Wes Burns' goal was probably better than that, even if he didn't take a deflection and goes in.
Yeah. So you think it was a cross that he was trying there?
I 100% think it was a cross. Yeah. There's no way he's trying a shot there.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. I think you're probably right. I think he is just trying to put that in towards the back post, isn't he? Even if he was actually shooting there and aiming for that far corner, I think if I'm being extremely harsh, it still wouldn't have been goal of the season for me. I think it's one of those that social media goes mad for. And while it would be a marvellous goal, it's more about having the audacity to do it rather than the difficulty of the actual goal. Because so far, the two front runners for goal of the season are Joe Rothwell's volley for Southampton and Wes Burns' Trivela for Ipswich. Both of those are substantially more difficult goals than Philogene's would have been. Still would have been an incredible goal, but I think every championship winger, or just about every championship winger, could do Philogene's goal. Would they have the audacity? That's a different question. But I think Rothwell's and Burns' goals are so difficult that he puts them firmly amongst the best goals we've ever seen at championship level. Philogene's would have been an exceptional bit of skill, but not as good as the other two goals, in my opinion.
Do you know what might happen at the end of the season? And this is going to cause such a debate when it happens. But because I think the EFL always back themselves into a corner by awarding Jaden Philogene that goal. So when they award the goal of the season to him, there are going to be protests.
That's a good point. That'll be very interesting to see what they do there.
Because they can't not give it him now. He has to win goal of the season. They've backed themselves into a corner.
That is such an interesting point, actually.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, we could dedicate an episode to this, and it will be an incredible episode of just passionate debate.
Well, surely, because I think what they do each season is they do a top 3 contender for goal of the season, don't they? Mm-hmm. And surely they've got to have Philogene, Rothwell, and Burns, and that's across the whole EFL. I can't imagine. I haven't been keeping across League One and League Two, but surely there can't have been better goals than those 3. Well, but maybe in terms of politics, they may include a League One or 2 goal anyway. But surely they have got to include this Philogene goal now if they are saying it's a goal. Yeah. Now you've stirred something in me. Just
told you the water's told me something. The water has told me something.
There you go.
Gone full Ricky Lambert here.
Anyway, let's move on from that. On Wednesday night, there was a big relegation 6-pointer, but it was Stoke who ran out the 1-0 winners at home to QPR. Stoke had won just 2 of their last 17 league games prior to this. They were in woeful form, so this was a huge relief for everyone involved, especially Steven Schumacher. His celebrations after the game were huge. On the other hand, a poor result for QPR, though, isn't it? Every time we think a side looks as if they could get dragged into the bottom 3, they suddenly just get one result and end up 5 points clear, whereas, QPR, they're our last hope in making this relegation battle somewhat interesting. And look, they had a bit of form heading into this and just couldn't make it count. And the thing is as well, you look at some of their results from the past 2 months. They lost to Sheffield Wednesday, drew at home to Huddersfield in a game where they were lucky not to lose, and now lost to Stoke after Stoke had just lost 4 on the bounce. QPR have had numerous chances to get out of this bottom 3, Justin, and just haven't taken that chance several times now. And that leaves me thinking they feel almost destined to get relegated, don't they?
It's the psychological aspect of those games, isn't it? They are big games. They are huge games, and if you're not coming on the other end of them with a win or at least a point, then yeah, there's a big issue at hold there, because they have played well over the last 4 games. You admitted to them just now being in some vein of form, which is a big surprise for me, I'll add, because you've been debating that over the last couple of weeks. But
4 games,
it's still form. Form's form. But you look at this game, and they had Stoke there for the taking. Stoke weren't particularly great. Steven Schumacher acknowledged it himself, that it's about results and not football. Gives you an idea of how sexy Stoke particularly played against QPR. And QPR had some good chances, and they didn't take them in this game. And I think that's the frustrating thing, and that's where the psychological aspect comes in. Because again, you look at the goal they conceded, they switched off at the back post at a set piece once again. For me, I think it's more down to the psychological aspect of losing a lot, not being in great confidence, and unfortunately not being able to get a run of form together. And that's the big thing for QPR. They are not beating the teams that they need to beat and getting results against the sides that they expected to lose against.
Yeah. Well, that's a very fair point, Justin. And I mean, when QPR had put together this small run of form that they had managed to collect, you thought maybe this is them finally getting some momentum. But this is a great way to really drive out all of that momentum and just leave them, struggling to put things together again. I mean, you look at who they've got this weekend. They've got Bristol City away, and as we were just saying at the start of the show, that Bristol City are a side who have been making a lot of progress recently. And you look at the teams above QPR directly. I mean, Millwall were the team who we were just talking about a second ago, who are struggling, but they've got Sheffield Wednesday at home. So on the face of it, you'd expect Millwall to get at least a point from that, and if they don't get 3 points, then that'd be quite disappointing. But you'd have thought they'd get 3 points. Huddersfield have got Hull at home, tricky game, but not completely out of the question. They get 3 points as well. So this could be a pretty bad weekend for QPR, and just leave them once again looking like they are the team destined to round off that bottom 3. I mean, it is worth saying it's been the same bottom 3 now since September. At no point has any other side dropped into that relegation zone. So when I say it almost feels like they're destined to get relegated, that's what I mean. QPR just can't seem to make headway in terms of getting out of there, and every time they do, they just get pushed back down onto their arse, and then they've got to start all over again. And time's running out now, isn't it? We've got 14 games left of the season. They need to get some sort of form together, and every time they do get some sort of form, it doesn't seem to last long enough, and that's why it's looking still pretty bleak for QPR. It's been looking pretty bleak for a long time. Then they start to make it look less bleak, but then they shoot themselves in the foot with the games against Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield and Stoke, and that's why it's looking like a pretty dire situation for them as it stands. Elsewhere in the relegation battle, there was a great result for Huddersfield. They won 1-0 at home to Sunderland. It means they've moved from 21st place for the first time since October, and now have a 5-point gap between them and the bottom 3. And John Eustace lost on his return to Birmingham with Blackburn. They were beaten 1-0 thanks to a goal from Andre Dazelle. Both sides have been hovering above the bottom 3, looking over their shoulders recently. So a big result for Birmingham to ease their small chance of getting relegated. Obviously, it's not small hopes. That makes no sense. Not a completely happy return for Eustace on his travels back to St Andrews, although he got a bit of joy afterwards. A fan invaded his post-match press conference and said, "All the best, John. They should have never got rid of you." What a polite invasion that is. Usually it's something a bit ruder than that, but that's just a very nice welcome back, I suppose, isn't it? During this press conference, he was also asked about being sacked after Birmingham chief exec Gary Cook said they weren't aligned with expectations. Eustace said, "That's up to Gary. I was very happy with the work that I did at the football club, and you can see the football club grew, and I left it in a much better place than when I came in. We were playing some really good football when I left, so I'm happy with the job I did." All absolutely true, Justin, right?
Spot on. Yeah, you can't really begrudge John Eustace. I think he's been incredibly respectful. For me, if I was John Eustace, I'm a bit more bitter. I'd have been devastated that I've taken my new team to St Andrews and lost, because all I want to do is run across that pitch. Because obviously the director's box is at the other end of the pitch to the dugout at St Andrews, and I would just give Gary Cook the middle finger. That's what I'd have done.
Straight to the point, as subtle as always. I think if Bristol City Blackburn, got to say, if Blackburn did manage to, get something here, it would have been fascinating to see Eustace's reaction. I'd like to think he would just give, because Eustace is quite a level-headed bloke.
Yeah.
I'd like to have at least seen him give a little, fist pump towards the director's box.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if he would.
I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I'd have asked for 2 cans of beer from the crowd, smashed it together, Austin 316, middle finger, both at Gary Cook and whoever else out him, climbed to the advertising holdings and then gone back into the change rooms.
Fine. And stone cold stunned Scott Hogan.
Exactly. For no reason whatsoever.
I can think of a reason. Well, that's what one former Birmingham manager is doing. Meanwhile, have you seen that Wayne Rooney is reportedly in talks to compete in a boxing match? It would be part of the Misfits boxing promotion. You remember there was that big KSI v Tommy Fury fight last year. That's Misfits who are behind all that. So that's apparently what Rooney might be doing very soon. And the question I've got, Justin, why? Why is he doing this?
He's got to prove that he's not washed as a football manager. So, of course, if you want to get a new job in football management, you go into boxing. It's the natural thing. I can't believe John Eustace didn't do it after he was sacked by Birmingham. I mean, Darren Moore's got a job at Port Vale. I was surprised that he's not done it either. Neil Warnock, he'd have been pretty handy. So, I think Wayne Rooney's, I guess, a form of therapy after being sacked. It's quite a difficult experience. And as I can't wait to see a middle-aged man who's not in his peak physical condition, unprofessionally box. That's going to be a big highlight for me. I cannot wait for that sporting event.
I'll tell you what, Darren Moore, I reckon he'd be a fantastic boxer.
No, he's too nice. He's too nice.
No, I reckon he's nice outside the ring, but as soon as he gets in there, he's an absolute animal. And the thing is with Rooney, though, he is known for his boxing. He was before his. Hang on, Justin, but you're laughing. But there is a serious point here. When he was a kid, he was a keen boxer. When he was a teenager growing up before football came along, he was. I think I'm right in saying he was even considering possibly, taking that up as a career as opposed to football, which I think would have been a poor decision on his behalf, judging from how he did against Phil Barnsley. Yeah. But he is obviously a keen boxer, and
but his last televised fight was against Phil Barnsley, and he got knocked out within 3 punches in his kitchen.
Yeah, but his
last televised
wasn't
fight
doing much sparring up to that point, Justin. So who knows? I just wonder why Rooney is doing this in the first place, because surely he's earned enough money during his career that he doesn't need to step into the ring. Is he just bored? That's the only thing I can possibly think of.
He just needs to find a hobby that isn't boxing. As I say, he's a middle-aged man. He's not in his peak physical condition. This isn't going to be a fun fight to watch. This is going to be a man who's not in his peak physical condition trying to slog it out with someone else. I mean, who's he going to fight? That's the other thing. It's got to be it's got to be an ex-professional footballer. Otherwise, there's no point in watching it, is there? I'm trying to think of players that he's had barmies with. What about that referee who was, when he scored that goal against Newcastle, and he's given the referee an earful, and then he volleys that goal in? Maybe you should fight that referee.
Maybe. Well, I mean, Ronaldo's the obvious one, isn't it? After the whole 2006
that'd be a good fight. Carlos Tevez.
World Cup debacle. Yeah, who knows? Let's see how it all unfolds, I suppose, Justin. Yeah, I think the only other thing I would say is surely Rooney doesn't need the money, but all I see on Instagram now is him advertising tat. Do you follow him on Instagram? All he seems to do is put out video after video of him advertising some random tat. I'm just like, why do you need to do this, Wayne? You're a very rich man.
You're better than this. Or are you?
I'm not sure he is better than that. And the final game we'll talk about here, Justin, is Norwich 4, Watford 2. 4 wins from 6 now for David Wagner's men, but quite a bizarre evening at Carrow Road. Despite Norwich being 2-1 up at the time, there were loud boos when Wagner took off Josh Sargent and Onel Hernandez. Norwich would, of course, go on to win, but Wagner wasn't happy after the game. He said, "This small group that we have, from my point of view, should stay at home. This doesn't help, and it affects the players. Those that boo aren't true supporters." Such a bizarre situation, isn't it? What do you make of all this, Justin?
I do have to sit on David Wagner's side a little bit. I mean, if you consider Josh Sargent, for example, who had a big long-term injury in the first half of the season, if you lose him again, it's not going to be ideal. So you've got to manage his minutes. And obviously, we're getting into the business end of the season. You've got to manage the minutes of your key players so they don't pick up muscle strains and whatnot. So I side with him there, but I think he's right. But it's also a fact that David Wagner's doing his very best, alongside Ryan Lowe and Mick Beale, to become one of the most disliked managers in their club's respective recent histories.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's got any problems with regards to that title. But I mean, look, David Wagner's entitled to his opinion. What I will say is, supporters pay a lot of money to go to games, a lot more at Carrow Road than most other grounds in the Championship, I may add. So they can do whatever they damn well please. And I think the response from supporters is an indicator of how they feel about Wagner's rather negative tactics. Now, to be fair to him, you're right, Justin. From what I understand, both Sargent and Hernandez were taken off because they've been lacking fitness, which is fair. However, the supporters aren't meant to know that, and if they want to show their displeasure about the manager, that's up to them. And it says a lot about the infighting at Carrow Road and how fans simply don't believe in this manager, despite them doing well when you look at the table. I mean, they were 6th heading into Wednesday night. So, I keep talking about how it's surprising that Norwich are as high in the table as they are, and that point still remains as far as I'm looking at it. But it's not a happy camp, and this could be something that costs them in the final 14 games of the season. All this infighting, Justin.
Yeah, I don't think it would cost them. I think the only thing that's going to cost them is probably a blip in form down to David Wagner's inability to get the best out of the attacking potential of this side. I think that's the big thing. I don't think he's going to care, or the players are going to care, that they're going to have a group of supporters boo certain decisions. He's going to get
Wagner says it affects the players.
He doesn't. He's just trying to tell people to shut up. How do I know? Because I've been in that position. I've been booed before.
Have you?
Yeah. I mean, you've been to watch me on a Sunday morning where you have audibly booed me when I've been playing football. So yes, I have. This is years. We're going back years. I don't need to bring up an anecdote, but you've not been the most supportive co-host in my football endeavours.
Slanderous claims being made on the second tier podcast
Defamation.
to round things up. Incredible goal by young Yasser Asprilla, by the way, as well. That was an unbelievable goal from him. 20 years old. He is such an unbelievable talent. And the final thing we'll finish things off with is West Brom. They've confirmed Daryl Dike is set to be out until the end of 2024. We were saying on Sunday how he must be one of the most unluckiest footballers going. But to emphasise the point even further, the reason he missed the first half of the season was because of an Achilles injury. And the reason he's now out is also because of an Achilles injury, except this one is on the opposite leg to the previous Achilles injury. He's done both Achilles in the space of a year. It's absolutely mental, isn't it?
So unlucky. And just what we said on at the weekend when we were reacting to the news we've been breaking down against Ipswich. It's so unlucky, and for it to happen to the opposite leg. I mean, there might be some biologist or biomechanics major who can tell us why that's happened. But if anyone's a listener, that would be useful actually, who has that degree. But it is so unlucky. Like, it's like doing your ACL in your right knee and then 6-12 months later you do your ACL on your left knee. I mean, it's exactly the same because it's just an Achilles, so that's a completely pointless comment from me, but you get the point. It's so unlucky, and that's what it's down to. It's so unlucky, and it's not like he's physically not capable. He looks like he's a strong, built guy. So for it to happen to him, it just shows how unlucky he is. Yeah,
it's absolutely mental. With regards to whether we've got any biomechanics majors listening to us, I don't think that would be the case, but we may as well put out the question and someone could give us some sort of an insight. But to do it twice in the space of a year is absolutely mental. I mean, it just goes, it's how you look. It's how you look into it with him, and his is clearly just completely on its arse at the moment. I just feel so sorry for him. But speaking of West Brom, we will be talking about them in our previous show with SBK tomorrow, because that's going to be our game of the weekend. West Brom v Southampton, such a massive game in the Championship. So we'll speak about that tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, and make sure you join us then for the preview show sponsored by SBK, where we'll also be making our predictions for the Championship this coming weekend ahead of another massive round of games in the Championship. So we bloody look forward to seeing you then. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast, and we'll be back again on Friday. I have been Ryan Dilks.
I have been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.